Near Nahavand, Persia, October 14, 1092, a 73-year-old man sits in a silk-lined tent, listening to the Quran on the holiest night of Ramadan. He has ruled an empire for 29 years, built universities that still stand, written a book kings still read. He believes the danger is behind him. It isn't. A stranger kneels before him, dressed as a Sufi, hands shaking, not from fear, but from something far worse. A blade flashes, one thrust to the heart, and the most powerful man in the Islamic world bleeds out on his own prayer rug, while the Sultan himself recites verses over his dying body.
But here's the part nobody tells you. The man who ordered this may not have been hiding in the mountains. He may have been sitting right there in the tent. This is the true story of the assassination of Nizam al-Mulk and the empire that died with him. To understand how a man who built empires ends up murdered on sacred ground, you need to understand what he built first. Rudkan, near Tus, April 10th, 1018. A boy is born to a tax clerk serving the Ghaznavid dynasty. His name is Hassan ibn Ali ibn Ishaq al-Tusi. There is no prophecy, no royal blood, just a father who understands numbers and a son who understands something far more dangerous, how power actually works. The Seljuks crush the Ghaznavids at Dandanakan in 1040. Hassan's father flees to Ghazna. Hassan follows. But he does something his father never would. He switches sides. He enters the service of a Seljuk commander named Tugril Beg, uncle to the future Sultan Alp Arslan. Tugril Beg dies, but before he does, he tells his nephew, "Keep this man. He is worth more than 1,000 cavalry." In 1063, Alp Arslan becomes Sultan. Hassan becomes his vizier. Not an advisor, the vizier. Civil administration, taxation, foreign policy, war, all of it flows through one man. The Sultan gives him a title, Nizam al-Mulk, the Order of the Kingdom. Imagine you are Nizam al-Mulk in that moment. You are 45 years old. You have rebuilt an empire's bureaucracy from nothing. You have founded the Nizamiya schools in Baghdad, Nishapur, Isfahan, institutions that will shape Islamic thought for centuries. You have everything. But power has a cost, because in 1072, Alp Arslan is assassinated, and Nizam al-Mulk does something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He places Alp Arslan's son, Malik Shah, on the throne. Then he rules in his name for 20 years, 29 years total as vizier. He built something no one man should hold, and somewhere in the mountains, someone was watching. Someone who had once sat beside him as a student, someone who had sworn an oath. Nizam al-Mulk had no idea that the boy he once studied with in Nishapur would become the ghost at the edge of his empire. Nishapur, mid-11th century. A teacher named Imam al-Muwaffaq gathers 3 students under one roof. Hassan ibn Ali, the young Nizam al-Mulk. Hassan ibn Sabbah, a boy from Qom, son of a Shia Yemeni who pretends to be Sunni, and Omar Khayyam, the poet and mathematician who will one day measure the stars. They make a pact. Whoever reaches power first will share it equally with the others. Omar Khayyam asks for a salary to study. He gets it. He never wants power. Hassan Sabbah asks for a position at court. He gets it, but he wants more. He wants what Nizam al-Mulk has. He conspires. He is exposed. He is expelled. The friendship is ash. By 1076, Nizam al-Mulk learns that Hassan Sabbah is preaching Ismailism in secret, a sect the Seljuk state considers heresy and treason. Hassan flees, not to safety, to Cairo, to the Fatimid Caliphate, the spiritual enemy of the Seljuks. He arrives in 1078. He stays 3 years. Then he clashes with the Fatimid vizier, Badr al-Jamali. They throw him in prison. The prison minaret collapses. They release him. He boards a ship. It sinks. He survives. Syria, Iraq, Iran. In 1081, Hassan Sabbah returns to Seljuk territory, but he does not hide. He climbs into the Alborz mountains and begins preaching in secret, converting villagers, building cells, waiting. On September 4th, 1090, he makes his move, Alamut. a fortress perched on a sheer rock. The path is wide enough for one man. Hassan enters disguised as a religious teacher. He converts the garrison one by one, the servants, the guards. When the majority is his, he offers the commander 3,000 gold dinars and safe passage. The commander takes the money and leaves. Hassan does not celebrate. He builds irrigation systems, food independence, a massive library with scientific instruments, a school to train missionaries. Nizam al-Mulk sends a delegation demanding submission. Hassan refuses. Nizam al-Mulk mobilizes religious scholars to issue fatwas against the Ismailis. He writes the Siyasat-Nama, the Book of Government, with entire chapters condemning the sect. In 1092, he sends military campaigns against Hassan's castles in Rudbar and Quistan. They fail. Nizam al-Mulk had two choices: negotiate with a man he considered a heretic, or destroy him completely. He chose war, and that decision would change everything.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, hit subscribe. It truly helps us bring you more content like this. Now, back to Nizam al-Mulk.
October 14th, 1092, the night of Ramadan. A caravan moves from Isfahan toward Baghdad. Nizam al-Mulk rides in the center, 73 years old, 29 years as vizier, the man who built the Seljuk administration with his own hands. The road narrows near Nahavand. The tents go up. The smell of frankincense mixes with desert dust. The Quran is recited. It is a holy night, a night of peace. A man approaches, Abu Tahir Arani. He wears the coarse wool of a Sufi. He carries a petition in his hands. He kneels in the dirt. Nizam al-Mulk leans forward to take it. The blade enters his chest in one motion, clean, precise, a thrust to the heart. The guards react, swords drawn. Abu Tahir does not run. He does not resist. They cut him down where he stands. His blood pools in the same dust as the vizier's. They carry Nizam al-Mulk to his tent. He is bleeding, still conscious. The Sultan Malik Shah arrives, the boy Nizam al-Mulk placed on the throne, the man who now wants his power back. Malik Shah kneels beside him. He recites the Quran into his ear. Nizam al-Mulk dies listening to the verses he spent his life upholding. 73 years old, 29 years as vizier, the most powerful administrator in Islamic history, murdered by a man in disguise on the holiest night of the year. But the knife was not the only weapon that night. Ibn Khalikan, in his Wafayat al-Ayan, records something most historians ignore. He writes that Malik Shah himself may have ordered the assassination. Why? Because Nizam al-Mulk's estates had grown too large. Because a vizier who rules for 29 years becomes a threat to the man who sits on the throne. Because Malik Shah had already begun stripping his powers in the final years. The assassin came from al-Mulk, but the hand that may have guided him sat in the tent, reciting Quran over a dying man. 35 days later, Malik Shah is dead. Illness? Poison? No one knows. The Seljuk Empire, the empire Nizam al-Mulk built, explodes into succession wars. It fractures into warring sultanates. The sieges against Hassan's castles are lifted immediately. The empire bleeds out on the same road where its architect fell. The death of Nizam al-Mulk was not an ending. It was a beginning. Hassan-i, now secure in al-Mulk, spent the next 32 years without ever leaving the fortress. From 1092 to 1124, he governed, wrote, and planned from behind those stone walls. He built something far more enduring than a single assassination, a state within a state, a network of mountain fortresses that would outlast him by more than a century. But here is the hidden fact that reframes everything. Hassan-i did not just create an army, he created a system. Young boys with combat potential were taken to al-Mulk. They lived in cellars on bread and water, intensive religious instruction, day after day. Then they were drugged. They woke in a hidden garden behind the fortress walls. Women, food, music, paradise made flesh. Then drugged again, returned to the cellar. They were told they had already visited paradise, that returning was conditional on one thing: completing their mission. 75 documented assassinations were ordered by Hassan and his two successors. All political, all military, never civilian. 2 attempts were made on Saladin himself in 1174 and 1176. Both failed. Hassan executed his own first son for murder. his second son for drinking wine, publicly. The law applied to everyone, even blood. The state of al-Mulk lasted 166 years, until 1256, when Hulagu Khan arrived. He destroyed the fortress, burned the library, erased the garden. But the method, the idea that one willing man with a blade could reshape an empire, that never died. We started with a man murdered on a holy night. You might have assumed this was a story about religious fanaticism, or political conspiracy, or the birth of terrorism. It wasn't. It was a story about two men who sat in the same classroom in Nishapur. One built an empire, the other built a weapon to destroy it. And the empire builder never saw the weapon coming, because he was still looking at the boy he once knew. Nizam al-Mulk built universities that outlasted him by centuries. He wrote a book on governance that kings still studied. He held an empire together for 29 years. And he died because he could not imagine that the system he built, centralized, absolute, dependent on one man, was also the system most vulnerable to one blade in the dark. The question was never whether Hassan-i was a villain or a visionary. The real question is, what does it take to build something so powerful that the only way to stop it is to kill the man who built it? And what happens to the empire when he falls? Nizam al-Mulk answered the first question with his life. The Seljuk Empire answered the second with its collapse. But Nizam al-Mulk was not unique in history. 120 years after his death, a Kurdish commander named Saladin would face the same weapon from the same mountains. Twice. He would survive. But the shadow that stretched from al-Mulk would reach across centuries, touching kings, caliphs, and crusaders alike. And that story is darker than this one.